The heart of every man craves a great adventure, but life doesn't usually feel that way. Jesus speaks of narrow gates and wide roads, but the masculine journey is filled with many twists and turns. So how do we keep from losing heart while trying to find the good way when life feels more like a losing battle than something worth dying for? Grab your gear and come on a quest with your band of brothers who will serve as the guides in what we call the masculine journey. The masculine journey starts here now.
Welcome to the Masculine Journey. We are very glad to have you with us today. We were so excited about this show. We were talking all the way up till the music started. That was pretty cool.
It is true, and the part I like is you know what time of day it is, Sam. Last week I was out in lunch somewhere.
Yeah, I said, you were all over the place.
Well, it was lunchtime.
Yeah. Maybe you were just hungry or dehydrated or something.
That was it.
Yeah, because you get up at like 2 in the morning or something, don't you?
4, but that's okay.
Okay, yeah, that's pretty early. So you've been up quite a while. By the time we come on at noon.
Yeah.
That is a little bit of a long time.
I need a nap. I'm old, yeah.
Yeah. Andy, you just got up probably about that time, didn't you, right before the show starts?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, that's it. Okay.
If you hear any snoring on the show, you'll know what it is.
Yeah, you got talking to the mic, Andy. I know you've been gone.
I know we got so many in the house. I'm just hoping I would be picked up in the background.
Let's start the year out great there.
Yeah, I was asleep while I thought I had a mic in front of me. Here, Jim, you can have it back.
Yeah, I thought it was fine. I'll do the same.
They're both doing it.
They are. Yeah. Well, maybe we'll call the other guys for a little while. But yeah. Well, today's topic is really exciting, actually.
It really is.
We've actually never done this topic.
I've never heard a show like this in my life.
Yeah. But, one of the things that is very hard to explain is, and I'm sure you guys have kind of faced it, when someone comes up and says, hey, I've heard about this boot camp thing. What is it?
Exactly.
It's kind of hard to explain. It's almost easier to do what we're going to do today and say, what isn't it? What it's not. This is what a boot camp isn't.
Yes, and a lot of fun doing it.
Yeah. Now, Corey, you definitely had some thoughts before you came to your first boot camp on what it might be like. Were they anywhere near what it ended up being like?
Nothing at all like what I had pictured going into it at all. So,
yeah, you'd expect going to a men's retreat. Everybody has different expectations, and we're going to talk a little bit about that today, what you kind of expected. I had read the book Wild at Heart before I went to my first one, and which is always a good idea. We're supposed to do that. And I had read it before I went, but I still did not expect what ended up happening. I thought I was going to get there, and I was really kind of hoping that we wouldn't have to be in a group setting and talk to people, because I was really at a point, I just wanted to deal with some stuff on my own. And I was afraid it was going to be what was happening to Scott here in this first clip where he's forced to share a little bit about his heart.
The beauty of your feelings and say the words. Come on.
I love you, Dad. I love you too, son.
Okay, group, we have some newcomers here today with us. Say hello to Scott and his father, Mr. Avil?
Evil, actually. Dr. Evil.
Hello, Dr. Evil. Hello, Scott.
Hello, everybody.
So, Scott, why don't we start with you? What brings you here with us today?
Well, I just really met my dad for the first time 5 days ago.
I was partially frozen his whole life.
That is beautiful that you can admit to that.
He comes back, and now he wants me to take over the family business.
But, Scott, who's going to take over the world when I die?
Listen to the words he used. Who's going to take over the world when I die? Feels like that to some of us sometimes, doesn't it? So, what do you want to do, Scott?
I don't know. I was thinking I like animals. Maybe I'd be a vet.
An evil vet?
No. Maybe like work in a petting zoo.
An evil petting zoo?
You always do that! I just think like he hates me. I really think he wants to kill me.
Now, Scott, we don't want to kill each other in here. We might say that we do sometimes, but we really don't.
Actually, the boy's quite astute. I really am trying to kill him, but so far unsuccessfully. He's quite wily like his old man.
This is what I'm talking about.
For me, going to my first boot camp, I'd read the book Wild at Heart and was really struggling to try to find what my wound was. You know, and I think deep down, somewhere in there, I knew what it was. And my fear at the time was I was going to have to talk about it. Right? And so God was very gracious at first boot camp for me. I honestly, even though there were a lot of people there, I rarely talked to anybody. You know, I really just wanted to be time with God and I. You know, and so my first boot camp experience was exactly what I needed, which is probably different than any of your guys' first experience there, but I was afraid it was going to be all about these sessions where I got to share these things that I didn't know that I was ready to share. You know, and in God's grace, he didn't call on me to share any of those things until it was time for me to share. And I won't say that I was comfortable in sharing those things when he called, but it was the right timing nonetheless. You know, and so for me, that was when we had this clip, it was really, that's what I was afraid it was going to look like.
My first experience, I had no idea what I was getting into. And it was, couldn't ask for a nicer setting, but I was told by a good friend, you have to go do this. And we were on our way to Alaska, called into missions there. And this just happened to be about the time we were supposed to arrive. It turned out I had to fly up earlier. But it was at a beautiful camp, which was Verner Bay, I think is the name of it. You had to drive as far as you could at low tide from Juneau to get there. If you didn't go at low tide, you didn't get there except by boat. But just beautiful setting, but I had no idea what I was getting into. And I'd been to hundreds of different Christian things, and it was a shock. It was so different from anything else I'd ever done.
Yeah, it definitely was. One of the things I want to throw in about the story, I got back from the wound session, and we come back, and then at that particular camp, you come back and you go to dinner that evening. And I go to dinner that evening after having just some great breakthrough with God on the side of the mountain and, doing some stuff. And one of the two guys I actually knew there, that I worked with, I walk in, I sit down with him at dinner, and he's like, "Hey, what's your wound?" And I'm like, "Really?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm not ready to go there yet." And it just kind of walked away, but that was all that whole fear, was the enemy trying to, just come right after what God had just given me. And fortunately, he was there to protect me with that as well.
Yeah, so, and then, my first boot camp, and I told this story, I think, at boot camp when I was on the radio, but the night before I left, the only two things I knew was that it was religious and that I did not want to be there. And I told that to my mom, and she was just so happy. Oh my gosh, she was just like, "That's amazing. I've been praying for that. I'm so happy you're going to that." And I was just like, as a complete unbeliever, like did not believe at all. I expected to be pressured. I expected to be, just pushed and prodded and, you need to be saved. And that's what I was really expecting the whole time out of it, going into it. And never once was I pressured.
Well, I think we need to get to this clip because I think this is what you were fearing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's play this clip and then we'll come back and talk about what that actually was like for you. And it wasn't this. I'm trying to find it. I wasn't ready. There we go.
Is there a sinner here looking for salvation? A new member? So I'll ask it again. Is there a sinner here looking for God?
Yes.
Thank you for coming, Brother Daniel.
Thank you, Eli.
We have a sinner with us here who wishes for salvation. Daniel, are you a sinner?
Yes.
Oh, the Lord can't hear you, Daniel. Say it to him. Go ahead and speak to him. It's all right.
Yes.
Down on your knees. You've come here and you've brought good and wealth, but you have also brought your bad habits as a backslider. You've lusted after women, and you have abandoned your child. Your child that you raised, you have abandoned all because he was sick and you have sinned. So say it now. I am a sinner.
I am a sinner.
Say it louder. I am a sinner.
I am a sinner.
Louder. Say it louder.
I've abandoned my child!
Beg for the blood!
If you give me the blood, Lord, and let me get away
Do you accept Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior?
Yes, I do.
Get out of here, devil! Out, devil! Out, sin! Do you accept the Church of the Third Revelation as your spiritual guide? Do you accept Jesus Christ as your Savior?
Yes, I do.
Would you be free from the burden of sin?
Wow. In the right context, all that stuff applies. You know, I'm not denouncing there's times to confront the enemy and all those kinds of things, which we've talked about. But isn't that a little bit of what you're afraid it was going to look like that weekend?
It's exactly right. And I think the best thing that I realized about boot camp and why I'm so passionate about boot camp now and why I've been trying to tell everybody about boot camp now is that is exactly what I did not need. And that's why my whole life I'd turned from even mentioning going to church or anything, because that's exactly what would push me away. It's something like that. It took going to boot camp and seeing what happens at boot camp and the relationships that you build at boot camp for me to truly understand a relationship with God and want and desire a relationship with God. Stuff like that would just push me away. And I know that there's people out there that are probably just like me that would just, that's just not their cup of tea at all. Anything remotely resembling that. So
one of the things you said that really caught my ear is you were expecting a religious experience. And for me, it wasn't. It was a relationship experience. And I wonder if anybody really had a religious experience there.
No, not. I think it all depends on how someone defines religious, right? You know, for me, the spirit of religion is not a great thing. You know, Jesus preaches against it. There's lots of that. It was a spiritual time, very much an intimate spiritual time, but it was not a religious time.
And that speaks a little bit to what my expectation was, that there was going to be not preaching like that, but, you know, just preaching after preaching, 3 days of all this preaching, music, people worshiping, whatever that looked like. What I did not experience was, or what I didn't expect at all, was the time with God and how, that was set up in the wilderness as an experience that was really what was the game changer.
Oh, absolutely. And again, we're talking about, if you just joined us, what we're talking about is what a boot camp isn't. Right, so these clips that you're hearing is not what to expect when you're there. It's somewhat the opposite of that. And you can go to masculinejourneyradio.org to register for the boot camp coming up. I believe it's March 20th through 24th. Go register now. Hi, this is Sam with Masculine Journey. I'm here with my son Eli. We're going to talk about ways that you can help support the ministry. One way, you can go to smile.amazon.com. There's information on our website there on how to do that.
Then you can go to facebook.com where you can click the donate button, or you can go to masculinejourneyradio.org. Once again, look for the donate button.
Or if you want to mail something in, mail it to P.O. Box 550, Kernersville, North Carolina, 27285.
What God does at Masculine Journey Radio Boot Camp.
When I first got here, I was kind of closed off. Didn't really want to talk to anybody because I thought I was stupid. I didn't believe. I'm not going to lie to you. I feel like each person who spoke kind of chipped away at this feeling I was having and chipped away at this mask I was hiding behind. I've never heard anybody speak about God and Jesus and the way we're supposed to feel like you guys have this weekend.
What a gift. $199 Masculine Journey Radio Boot Camp. Go to masculinejourneyradio.org.
There she was just walking down the street singing do-a-dee-dee-dee-dum-dee-dee-dum, popping her fingers and shuffling her feet singing do-a-dee-dee-dee-dum-dee-dee-dum. She looked good, she looked good, she looked fine, looked fine, looked good, she looked fine, and I nearly lost my mind.
I could keep listening to this.
She was walking next to me.
I'm going to keep listening for a couple minutes. That's Bill Murray. You got to listen to Bill Murray singing. It's always a joy for me, and I can't explain why. I love to get weird clips in that you would not expect. But this is literally, we're talking about boot camp, and that's where these guys were.
Yeah. Right, which was one of my confusions of why they even call this thing
Yeah, I'm still waiting to go on a march, a hike, or something.
We usually take nap time. That's what's going on.
Exactly. It's the farthest thing from a boot camp that I've ever been. That's where I go to get my sleep.
So that was definitely a point of confusion. Is what do they mean by this? And it became glaringly obvious to me. Mm-hmm. The more I understood that. There was, in order for some things to happen between God and I, there was some other things like boot camp that needed to go away.
Yeah, that's something we could actually talk a little bit about. Why do you think they call it a boot camp? I mean, we got that from Ransom Heart, right? And that's what they called it. But, Andy, why do you think they call it a boot camp?
Well, it's, to me, you've got boot camp for physical ability or military ability, whatever it may be. We like to put boot camp in any kind of term that anything's intensive. So it was a spiritual intensive the way I took it. But, I really didn't know what to expect. I was just like you guys. I did, it was like, are we going to march? What drew me out kind of is I kind of knew there was going to be some adventure there. There was going to be, shooting guns and stuff like that. That was cool. Meeting other guys that had the same kind of things going on in their lives, but I really didn't know. I thought it was going to be a lot of preaching too, and you guys can attest to this. I took notes like crazy the first probably 3 or 4 times, and it became Sunday school for me. It became a parachurch type of ministry to me. It was my lifeline because it was what my spirit needed at the time. So it was very intensive that way. But what it was just that information. Aside from going out, it could be that if you just left it at that, but everything was led with the idea of God's helping you and walking you through this. And you have those times in the wilderness. I mean, I remember Robbie, I don't know if he remembers the first 3 or 4 times he would ask me, now has God come after your heart? And I kind of looked at him like he had 3 eyes or whatever, because, I hadn't really thought about it. Like, I'm just trying to get information to fix my life. But God coming after my heart at a boot camp really hadn't entered my mind. But now I see it so much, and now I can be the guy on the other side saying, how it's God came after your heart for the guys that come. So,
yeah, and something that I think is very important, about what you just said about what it's not is when you talk about building relationships with people, it's not people talking down to you for your problems. It's not people sitting there holier than thou, I'm so good because of this. And it's really building relationships with people who are going through the same stuff that you are going through. And they're not scared to share it. I think in other outlets and other places, we talk about certain things at boot camp that most people are scared to talk about and don't want to go into. But instead of just talking about it, there's guys there that will openly admit to you they're going through the same thing that you're going through. They've been through it. They still deal with it. And I think that was so key to me, having the experience I had the first boot camp, was that admittance and that relationship I built with people who I know experienced and were willing to admit that they were going through the same stuff I was going through.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. If you're going through things and you're thinking that you're on your own and you just got to try to figure them out, even if there's somebody there guiding you, if they're not giving you some things to take you to the source, God, right, or helping you with examples, you're left feeling very frustrated. And we kind of get a clip from Anger Management. It really kind of shows us what that's like.
Yep, and I want to talk about that.
Go ahead, please.
Before I want to make a really lame statement, but I think it will begin to surface the more you think about it, is that a military boot camp is really about understanding for a young man authority. Mm-hmm. And being able to fall in under that authority and what that actually looks like. And, what my prayer is for everybody at boot camp is that they have that experience with God out there in the wilderness like Jacob did, where he understood, wow, this is what it really is like to encounter God, in a wrestling match and really understand what it means to have that real relationship, real authority, not being under the authority of the preacher, so to speak, like we just heard in that other clip, but being actually in that wrestling match with God.
Boot camp in the military is to break you down so they can turn you into a different man. And that's what God does at these boot camps. So from that perspective, it's a perfect name.
Well, and he turns you into the man you were supposed to be.
Exactly.
Before life came after you, right? Because there is a tearing down process. There has to be, and we'll go into that actually next week when we talk about what is a boot camp. But
it is a lot about identity. And when we think about identity, Jack Nicholson's going after Adam Sandler in this one.
But he's not giving him much information.
No, it's like, oh my goodness. I'm sure you felt this.
So, Dave, tell us about yourself. Who are you?
Well, I'm an executive assistant at a major pet products company.
Dave, I don't want you to tell us what you do. I want you to tell us who you are.
Oh, all right. I'm a pretty good guy. I like playing tennis on occasion.
Also, not your hobbies, Dave. Just simple. Tell us who you are.
Maybe you could give me an example of what a good answer would be. What did you say?
You want Lou to tell you who you are.
No, I'm a nice, easygoing man. I might be a little bit indecisive at times.
Dave, you're describing your personality. I want to know who you are.
I don't know what you want me to say. I mean, I'm sorry. I want to answer your question. Just not doing it right, I guess.
I think we're getting a picture, Dave. Let's move on.
Actually, the more I listen to that clip, it's brilliant because, when you deal with men at boot camp, you often get what they do for a living, what their hobbies are.
Oh, yeah.
Which may not have, usually isn't who you are. Right. And so that actually was a little bit different as I listened to it again. God hit me from a different angle in that clip.
Well, the challenge is all the religious spirit that's in that room right there.
That's
and all
true.
The judgment that's going on.
Oh, there's a bit. Yeah.
And, everybody's judging the guy. And that's, what I'm afraid of at church all the time. Standing up in Sunday school, I tell them what's really going on. And I'm going to feel like all those people are laughing at me.
Oh, no, that's a great point. It's easier to walk through and go, yep, life's great.
Doing fine.
God is good. And all the time. And he is. But.
Now, my Sunday school, my group, they would just laugh at me. But
yeah. You have the most authentic group there is, though, in Sunday school. Now, Dan, your first boot camp.
Or Rodney.
I get habits from you. I could have called him Harold or Howard. I would have felt better.
Is that your middle name, Rodney?
Rodney. Rodney. Not Dan. Other than the wound I just gave you, Rodney.
Ouch.
Yeah. What about your first boot camp? What did you expect, and then what did it really become more like?
Well, I'd listened to the show quite often and knew it was going to be some kind of a manly experience. I had just went to the men's summit, which is also coming up. That for the first time. And I was like, wow, that was a great one-day experience, great speakers. And I kind of said, it's probably going to be more like that, but it's for 3 days. So I'm going to get a lot of different speeches. Never had any idea that I was going to be off on my own with God going over me and my life and my wounds, my name, all these other things. I had no idea that these things were going to come at me and be able to just spend time alone. I was looking forward to all the other times too, whether it was, go shoot the guns and go fishing and all these other manly things. It was just like, I got time to slow down and just be with God and talk. So anything I was doing, it was great because it was like, I expected to be kind of busy the whole time with, you have to do this task and that task. And it was, no. You go work on your assignment to go think about your topics, but that was that one-on-one time. And then I find myself still having that one-on-one time later on. Okay, whatever I was doing, I kind of really went out and said, I'm going to go sit in nature and be away from everything. I did not want to go back to the cabin. I wanted to be out. Even that day it was raining, I was like, okay, I'm going to go sit out in the rain. It just felt good. I loved it. Mm-hmm. I was being with God where he's at.
Well, thank you, Rodney. I'll make sure I get your name right going forward. I think I called him Dan the other day when I called you. I don't know why. You remind me of Dan. Guys, next week we're going to talk about, what a boot camp is. But I think, some of the things that we can kind of round out is, for any of us, was it what you expected? And for me, it wasn't.
No, absolutely not. In fact, I can never remember anybody not being just really surprised at, this just wasn't what I expected. But also, it's fascinating now that we've been doing these for a number of years, different members of my family say, "Oh, I met a guy that was at one of your boot camps, man, and that changed his life." And it happens it's a fairly common thing to happen to my family. Say, "Oh yeah, I ran into so and so. It was at a boot camp, and he said, this was a game changer for him."
Yeah, it's amazing to watch what God does over those 3 days.
And that is exactly who did it. Yeah. I may have been there, but that wasn't obviously anything I said.
Well, they've listened to our show. They know God's got to be in the middle of it.
Weakest of us all. I don't get to be here next week, so I'm going to give you a little of what it is.
Okay.
Different every single time. I've been to the one in Alaska, 2 in Colorado, and probably another 10 here. It's never the same twice. So I guess we can't really tell you what it is. At least for me, that's been my experience. Similar materials, similar clips, but never the same experience.
Yeah, and it's always what I need. Yeah, that's the really cool thing is it is hard to explain what it is. But there's so much that it's not, and I promise you what you're fearing it's going to be, it is not going to be that. That's all I can really tell you. Because God's going to show up doing something really cool, something really special in your heart and the hearts of others. It's amazing just to sit back and be a part of that. Go to masculinejourneyradio.org. Pray about the upcoming boot camp. It's the 21st, Rodney, remind me, it's the 21st through the 24th. Go register now at masculinejourneyradio.org. We'd love to see you there and love to see what God does with you.
In March 21st.
Oh, is that what I said? What I said?
Yeah, you said. It's the 21st to the 24th.
Oh,
but
March.
We're saying March.
Oh, yeah, I guess I need to say March. Yeah.
March 4th? No, 21st.